Okay, so we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Lions Lounge Lockdown, episode 64. Sean Dyche. Dyche, thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem. How you going?
Good. Can I call you Dyche?
You help yourself, mate. Call me what you want. They call a lot worse than that, trust me.
So obviously a Millwall player back in the day. Very well known. Nothing against you. You had a good career, but very well known for your time management as well. But we're going to wind it right back to Millwall podcast. But we're going to start. I've got to ask you because you started at Nottingham Forest, and that was under Brian Clough, wasn't it? He was the first team manager at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was a young pro. Quite well thought of in them days, actually. Broke my leg at 17, so that gave me a bit of a knock. Me and a lad who's still a very good friend of mine and worked with me at Burnley, Steve Stone. We broke our legs within about 4 days of each other, but we both recovered, and he went on and did fantastic. Obviously, he played in the first team and went on to play for England. I had to take a step back and, ended up having 3 years at Forest as an apprentice as a young pro, and then went off to Chesterfield and sort of had to dig in for a number of seasons, before getting a sort of break to move higher.
Yeah, Steve Stone, he was a great player. I remember once, it just popped into my head. He was playing, I think, for Aston Villa, and someone passed the ball to him on the touchline. He just literally fell backwards on his arse, and no one near him. He'd done his knee bad, I think, or something bad again.
Yeah, that was at Forest at the City Ground. Yeah, he ruptured his patella tendon out of nowhere. It's the oddest, them really odd things. Literally just fell backwards and popped it. So, yeah, a real challenge for him. But I mean, he's done an amazing career. The number of really, really harsh injuries he had and to come through them and had the career he had, played for England and, moved for big money and stuff like that. Fantastic. But to be honest, I thought this was about me, not about him. So why don't you leave Stoney out, fuck him off, and just talk about me? It'd be much more enjoyable.
Well, so we'll talk about you, and we'll talk about your 7 years at Chesterfield, because I wasn't going to mention it, but you did. And then obviously I remember that as a teenager, the cut run. So we take a penalty earlier, clip on YouTube in the semi-final against Middlesbrough, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want that penalty. I didn't ever want to take a penalty. Just had to, really. So yeah, I'm pleased it went in. Trust me. But no, we had a great time. Unfortunately, we recently just buried the late John Duncan and his assistant. We buried a few years ago, Kevin Randall. So, real shame, because them two were a big influence on me and many others. But certainly, John Duncan was, and the team that we had, and kind of making something out of not really that much. A group of okay players, suddenly formed a real strong unit and went on to do relatively great things for a club of that size. So yeah, really important part of my career and my makeup for going forwards and playing under coaching and managing.
Yeah, so you really made your name there. 7 years there. I think 1 year at Bristol City, and then in 1999 you found your way to Millwall Football Club. How did that come about?
Yeah, I had a couple of years at Bristol City. I went down there under a pretty big move, actually, a few quid at the time, and just got injured straight away. And it's funny how, the reason why I mentioned it, it's funny how different fan bases take to you differently, because when I went there and got injured, they were kind of like, sick noting me off and that. Whereas the Millwall fans seemed to sort of accept, even though I got injured the first year there, if you remember, they seemed to just go, well, okay, let's give them a chance. And when I got in the side at Millwall, it was a completely different feeling. It was like the fans sort of wanted you there and wanted you to do well. So, there lies the complexities of a fan base. Sometimes they take to you without any particular reason. Sometimes they don't. But I learned a lot at Bristol City, and then I went on loan to Luton for a few months, and then it was Bob Pearson got me out of there and wanted me to come to Millwall. And to be honest, it was a fantastic part of my sort of career being at Millwall. It seemed to fit for me, fit with the fans, fit with the players I was around, life-wise, where we were living, and totally enjoyed every bit of it.
You mentioned Bob Pearson there. It's such a shame, obviously, he recently died. The club paid a good tribute to him. And I used to call him the Highlander in his interviews, because we've done like over 60. And no matter what player I interview from whichever era, Bob Pearson got me to the club. He just played a massive part in the club's history.
Yeah, I mean, he's, he was well thought of at that time anyway, around the thoughts of getting players from varying situations and not always, big names or anything, really. A lot of young players came through, obviously, in the group that I'm sure we'll talk about that I played in. And, I think he had an eye for he knew that young group needed a few older heads around. And he also knew I'd had a bit of a tough time at Bristol City, playing wise, and got a bit of stick and all that. But he knew that I'd come through it at Luton. So I think he thought, he'd do for us. And, I'm pleased to say, well, hopefully it did work out. It did, certainly from my point of view, it did. Because I totally enjoyed my time.
And obviously at the time, Keith Stevens and Alan McCleary were the managers, two players that played in your position. Was that an influence on you going to the club as well? They're sort of similar types of characters and players to you were?
No, to be honest, I didn't. I never really looked at my career like that. At the time, things had gone really, really poorly for me at Bristol City. Fitness and injury and lack of form and all that kind of business, and didn't really quite fit there. And then, having gone to Luton for a few months, and they had a few tough times there because that was when they went into administration. But I enjoyed that young group there. And then when I got the chance to come to Millwall, I was just like, well, I needed a fresh start. I knew that. I liked the idea of it. I liked, I knew not all the players, but I knew of some of the players, especially the young players. And there was a good buzz around it at that time. And I think all of them things fell into place, and, contractually and all them things, they all worked. Pretty low fee at the time because I'd gone into Bristol City for kind of 354. I think Millwall paid maybe 100 grand, 150 maybe, or something like that. So even that was it was all pushed aside. It was almost like I was a bit under the radar for that time. So it gave me a fresh start. And like I said, I mean, from then on in, I got injured the first year, which is a massive blow because obviously the lads would tell you I was fit. I always looked after myself, and that pre-season particularly, because I got a move, I thought, right, I'm going to be on this. And I was really, really fit that summer. So to get injured and then be out for months again was just a real massive blow to me.
Yeah, I saw that. Joined in, I think, 99. Yeah, summer of 99. Tony Moore said you joined pretty much the same time as him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Within, I can't remember, but it might be even within days, certainly within a week or so.
And then obviously you get this fresh start. Was you slightly older at this point? You had 7 years at Chesterfield. What age was you?
Yeah, so I think I was 29 because I'd gone in. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, I'd gone in there as a pretty sort of, I suppose, rounded kind of journeyman footballer with a young group, like we said, and needed that. They probably needed that bit of experience, and I needed that fresh start and that sort of energy around me. So it was a good mix, to be honest. And there's a few other older heads as well, of course, Nevers and people like that. And Tuts came in a little bit later, and Tone had done a bit. I mean, he was making his name playing wise, but he'd been around a big group at Liverpool and a few loan spells, and so there was a little bit of that knocking on. Obviously, a bit later, Steve Claridge and people like that came in, but that initial season, there was only a few of us who kind of been out there and played a pretty fullish kind of career to that point. So I think looking back, I could totally see. Well, even then, I could see why. Once I got in the camp and realised how many talented young players there were, I thought, well, yeah, I totally get it now. They need a few older heads around just to sort of hold it all together a little bit. With a bit of experience.
You only played once in that first season. You said, I checked it earlier and thought he must have got injured straight away. How did you get injured? What was it?
I was spewing, mate. I did my back again. So I'd done my back when I was a young kid at Chesterfield many years before. And then I did my back at Bristol City. That cost me. And it was fine. And then I come back super fit. Had a season fit and then come back really fit to Millwall, or when I got a move there. And it went again. And then I got through that. And lo and behold, after that first game at Luton, which we won, I think me and Tuts played, I think we kept a clean sheet. I think it was a 1-0.
2-0 you won. Beat Luton the only game you played, yeah.
Yeah, and then the following week in training, just literally doing some heading drills and went up and kind of flexed to edit, and it went again. And I just, honestly, I was devoed. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh no. Yeah. So I'd literally got myself fit, played one game, and it went again. So, and then it was just dig in time, because you think, well, where's this going? I'd had a season's injury at Bristol. It had gone really badly for me. More or less a season apart from the one game at Millwall. And then come back the next pre-season almost thinking, well, I don't know which way is this going to go, but I got myself really fit again. They gave me a bit more time at the end of that season and during pre-season to make sure I was like really fit. My back was really strong, which was helpful looking back. So when I did get my chance to come into the team, I was fit and ready and raring, and it started to fall into place for me.
People think that the life of a footballer is jolly out there, only train so many hours a day, brilliant money, which there is pros, but obviously, like you say, moving to London, around a good group that were doing well, it must have been so frustrating. So, did you feel part of it still though? Because obviously we know it was a very tight knit group.
No, the lads were great. I mean, excuse me, probably still the biggest group of people I still keep in touch with through football are the Millwall lads, and I think there was such a healthy respect. One of the secrets of being a real team, you don't have to like everyone. You don't have to be best mates over, but you have to respect them. And I think there was a massively high level of respect amongst the group there. As it happens, we did more or less all get on anyway. But what I mean is underlying whether you got on your best mates or not, there was a real healthy respect about each other's roles and how we stayed together as a group. And I think that was apart from the obvious talent that was there, I think that was a real powerful weapon for us staying together as a group. And, even the lads, me being injured, excuse me, a couple of others who had injuries up and down the time when I was in the treatment room and, come in and have a bit of fun with us and try and keep yourself going and keep yourself motivated to get fit and get back out there.
Yeah, Tony said to me there's a WhatsApp group, and he's never kept in touch so much or been like, you'll still keep in touch now 20 years later. So just shows how strong that bond was.
Yeah, I saw it when I got the sack. I popped down and saw a few of the lads in London. A few couldn't make it, but we got 7 or 8 of us together and just caught up really, because it's difficult, when I've been working and they've been working and varying people doing varying roles, not just in football and other jobs and other walks of life. And it's difficult to get them together. So the WhatsApp group is an easy way of just checking in with each other and, checking in that people are okay and stuff. So yeah, real good group, real good group.
That first season, obviously, you wasn't involved, but they missed out on the playoffs, Wigan away.
Yep.
And then the second season, 2000, 2001, of course, was the season which will always be remembered in Millwall history. You played 35 times that season. Who did you pretty much partner? Was you majorly partnered with? Obviously, you had Joe Dolan there, Nevers, Tuttle.
Yeah, I think it would have been overall Nevers, but Joe Dolan, I think one of my first games, might have even been my first. Can't remember, but I played with Joe and obviously I played in the one when he sadly got injured because he looked like he was going to be a real player, Joe. I mean, between him and Sads, I thought we had 2 real talented lads there who unfortunately, ended up, eventually Joe with his varying injuries, which was, just hideous bad luck. There's no 2 ways about it. And Sads with his hip and stuff. So, yeah, I think it was us. And then he got injured, unfortunately. And then me and Nevers after that. I can't remember how I got in. Cause like I say, it was 35 games. I can't remember whether I started the season like fit, if you know what I mean, but not properly fit, not as in match fit. They gave me a bit more time because of what happened before my back. And I can't remember, Nevers might have got injured or something, which is why I went in, or Joe went in, whichever way you look at it. And then kind of stayed in, Joe got injured, and then me and Nevers more or less took the rest of the season on.
They've both been on the show, 2 very different types of characters. Let's talk about Joe first. What was he like?
Joe's a great lad. I mean, a younger lad. He was a good pro. He was authentic in what he did. Good enough athlete, good enough to play. Tough-minded on the pitch. Big, obviously physically big, and a real honesty to him. But I've got to be honest, like I said about all of the players there at that time. There was always an honesty and like an authenticity. And then Nevers obviously a bit more experienced, not as big physically, but read the game well and used his knowledge of the game well. We ended up playing the most I played there with a partner was Nevers, and another one who I think Mill's been really good actually having sort of underrated players. And I always thought Nevers was a very very good centre half, and amongst many others, Robbie Ryan and people like this and Livers. Some of the unsung names who did a great job, and I think that collective mentality always kind of let them players shine. And I know they're respected at Millwall, not necessarily respected around the game and big names around the game, but very well respected within the group and by a lot of the fans there. Some of the ones who weren't the obvious names like your Timmies and all them. And I think Joe was one of them who was coming through in that vein, and unfortunately his injuries cost him. And then Nevers, like I say, I played the majority of my football with Nevers, and yet bizarrely making my debut with Tuts. So. It's one of them twists of fate with centre halves. If you get injured or suspended, or the team are doing well or not doing well, it can keep you in the team or get you out of it, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, Nevers as well. We've heard a lot about his pre-match rituals in the dressing room, his animal noises, and he's making himself sick.
Yeah, well, it takes all sorts. That wasn't quite my bag, but to be fair, the lads know that I used to have a few little things, quirks myself. So I'm not going to start questioning Nevers' quirks, but it's fair to say it was interesting when you first play and you're thinking, what is he doing? But it was his way of prepping. And players have many different weird and wonderful ways. The idea is whatever floats your boat, whatever you need to do, you've got to be ready when the whistle blows. And to be fair, he very rarely let the club down. And I thought the season going to the playoffs for the championship to possibly get in the Premier League, I thought he was outstanding. The last handful of games, particularly, I thought he was there. I unfortunately twisted my ribs and popped a bit of cartilage out my ribs, so I missed the remaining probably 4 or 5 of the season. And was just fit for the playoffs, but Nevers was outstanding at that time. I know that.
Talked a lot about centre halves. Obviously, the managers were centre halves. What are they like as managers, as fans. I mean, not personally, I always got the feeling they was joint managed, but got the feeling like Rhino was the manager and Macca was the assistant. Did they work well together?
Just different types of people, different types of characters, different types of coaching, management, different influences down their careers. And they had a pretty good blend, to be fair. But obviously, I didn't, it's hard for me to comment because I didn't play under them that much because obviously injury and stuff like that. Got on with them well, fine and stuff like that, but just didn't hardly play, unfortunately. So it was after that really when Mark McGee came in when I started coming to the fore a little bit more and playing because I was fit and well and all that. So yeah, so I know both of them in different ways are Millwall legends in their own right, and they formed a sort of a connection to take on the team. So nearly got it done, and then the next season, you could argue it was a little bit hard at the time on them because they weren't doing that bad. I remember I was at the game actually. I think it was away at Brentford.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fans really come on them a little bit there, and then it was pretty quick after that. It might have been, was it the next week? It might have been the next week when
it was after that game they got sacked. Right. I think we were 7th in the division, but
yeah,
harsh. I mean, we all think it was harsh, but also shows at the same time the ambition of the chairman.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the time I was obviously playing. I wasn't as involved in behind the scenes, but Theo and Bob had obviously thought it was the right time to change, and Mark McGee was around at that time, and it's fair to say, what you're going to say. It was a good decision because at the end of the day, it worked.
The job done. What was he like, McGee, as a manager?
Yeah, I got on well with him. Yeah, I've not really got on too badly with any of my managers. I don't really have too many gripes about any of them. He was decent in what he did. He was a decent coach as well. He had the late Ray Arthur, who was a very good coach. Steve Gritt, very underrated coach in my opinion. Steve Gritt, good connection with the staff. And with the players, actually, he had a good connection with the players as well. So, credit for him to kind of almost I thought one of his best, looking back now that I've managed myself, I think one of his best things when I look back was he didn't try and, I think he realised that it was a talented group of players. So rather than kind of get too involved and try and twist and turn the tactics and sort of be clever with it, I think he let it roll a little bit when I look back and almost like, do you know what, this is a good side, this. And kind of just brought in that new feeling, which sometimes comes, gives everyone a breather when the manager goes. Everyone sort of, has got something else to play for. A new manager comes in and almost let it start evolving itself. And I think that's good management because sometimes managers go in and want to change everything straight away. And I think he just sat back and thought, hang on a minute, there's some real talent here. And I remember once, after a bit of a while in, I remember talking to him, and once I got to know him a bit better, obviously, and he actually said, he said, I looked at the job and I thought, wow, what a job this is with these talented young players here. And so he said, I didn't think I had to go in and start ripping it up and starting again. I kind of just let it evolve a little bit and, put his own stamp on it slowly but surely, like all managers do, but certainly not rip it up and start again.
Tony said to me a good thing that he did do was as well, is that he would get a block of games and he would say, we need that many points from those games. So don't, if you lose one game, don't worry about it. As long as we pick up that amount of points within this time frame, then that's okay. And Tony said that would take the pressure off quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's things like that. The other thing, most managers will tell you, well, particularly not so easy in the Premier League, obviously, but if you're talking 2 points a game, if you can average 2 points a game over the season, you're probably going to get promoted. So I think at the back of our minds, we're always working on that kind of ratio. You lose one, can you win the next, or can you pick up the next number of points to get you around that 2 points a game mark? And I think if you look down the Animals' history, it's pretty safe bet that if you're getting a couple of points a game on average, obviously you understand the train of thought. I know there's not 2 points a game, but you get what I mean. As you accumulate, you're going to be pretty close. And we sort of kept to that curve for a long period. And if there was a blip, it'd remind us, we're still on track. And a couple of draws or a couple of soft draws or, excuse me, a loss here and there. And he wouldn't really, he wasn't sort of shouting from the rooftops. He wasn't overly questioning it because I think he knew that the team were on something.
My God, we wasn't to something. Obviously, we get promoted and we was absolutely steamrolling it towards the end. There's a game I want to talk to you about because 5-1 away, Cambridge, Paul Eiffel gets a hat-trick. And I'm sure he told me a story involving you. And when I checked it today, at half-time, you'd actually gone off.
Go on.
I don't want to say it now. Did you have bad guts or something like that? You had to go off.
Yeah, I've had a couple of them. There was one, it might have been that game. It kept me out for like a week. It seemed to, I couldn't shake it. I missed a game. And then during the week, thought I was clear and it just all started again. And it's like, oh, not good this. And then the next game you got into it, you've lost about £6 in weight. And I was thinking that'd be good. So, yeah, I might well have done, yeah. Can't remember it as clearly as him, though. Strange
Yeah,
thing
he
to
was
remember.
like, come off for the match, boy. He said, you've been in there since half time. But what a player
Yeah,
he was.
I don't know what happened, but I was really ill, yeah. It wasn't great.
How'd you get on with Ives? I found a photo and I wanted to ask you what was going on.
Yeah, no, good, yeah. No, I it was more of a, believe it or not, that's a show of passion, because I thought, I loved all them young dudes. I thought they were brilliant, mate. I really did. I mean, it was a marvel to watch them and train with them and the attitude amongst them. And they had that nice edge about them. They're sort of jostling for position as who's the top sort of boy, but they're respectful within it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I used to love it, them lads. And I was on fire for spells, and Timmy and Reedy. And, another player who doesn't always gets mentioned as much because he left not long after, but I thought Lucas Neal was a top player. And obviously he showed that he was later on in his career. But, you forget it was a real talented group. So, yeah, I used to love it when they used to do the good things they did. And now and again, I used to get hold of them and tell them what they're doing wrong, let's say.
I was about to say, what was it like day to day at the training ground? It must have been, I know it was eventful. Christoph Kinney seemed to be at the brunt of most of it. But what was it like? It was a big mixture of either very experienced or very young, wasn't it?
Well, there was a lot of good characters there. So I don't think it's just Christoph. They all had their little quirks and their little edges. I mean, Tone always had a good line. Reedy was quite dry, quite, thoughtful, but then he'd come out with a good line here and there. Chopper was always lively. I'd chip in my own kind of way, and Nevers himself, and, Ives in his own way. And, Matty Lawrence, the quirks of Matty Lawrence, trust me, there's plenty of them. The Irish lads, Sads and Robbie, and Livers was the quietest one, but, everyone respected him because of the job. So there was just so many. I mean, I honestly can't remember it just being Christoph being the main man. I think everyone chipped in. Timmy and Christoph would always be lively. If they had a couple of halves of lager on a night out, I seem to recall, they'd always be quite lively. No, it was a really, really good group, top group. And even Fitzy, I mean, I saw Fitzy the other day, actually, an academy managers thing. Even Fitzy, it was great with me. I was kind of coming in almost like as a replacement type thing, but totally respectful of me, never, ever mentioned it or anything against me, almost like, no problem, this is football, and got on with it. So even them guys in the early days, and, good pros, proper people, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's still at the club. You said Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that's right. Well. Yeah. So, good characters. And Jilks, he came in for a bit as well. People like him, older pro and been around a bit. So, it was a healthy mix, I thought.
And then, of course, we win the league. What do you remember about those times, that day, and the events?
Brilliant. Well, the weird thing about it, and I know you'll know this, but went to Wrexham, and Wrexham were decent on the day. We couldn't really get a grip of the game, but then typically if Timmy pops up with a great header, and I think we drew that game, and I don't get me wrong, it was we were worthy of getting promoted. I mean, that's for sure. But yeah, that was a real tough game. I remember that. But some of the performances, I mean, when I look back, there were so many good performances that season, and important performances when it's tight. I remember. Oh no, it might have been. I was getting mixed up with Reading, but I can't remember if it was that season or the following season in the Championship. We went there, and I mean, it ended up one of them close, weird finishes where it was like 4-2 or 4-3 or some mad game. But we were outstanding. We steamrolled them. I remember the last game of the season winning 5. I mean, Reedy scored that unbelievable goal across the angle, hit the bar, hit the post, went in.
Yeah.
I mean that side on time when it was really. I remember, I think it was Colchester away, and we used to laugh about it. The pitch was absolutely horrendous. In the promotion or the winning season, I'm sure he literally was dribbling as he would, and he literally chipped it over a puddle and ran round it. And we were all wetting ourselves. Laughing after the game, but we weren't there as well. So it was almost like whatever challenge was right in front of that group, good pitch, bad pitch, good ground, rubbish ground, big game, small game. Everyone just got along with it. Everyone just got the job done, And when I look back, it was a fantastic season and well worthy of us going on and winning it, I thought.
Yeah, mate, brilliant. So it wasn't even, Millwall like to do things usually, touch and go last minute or, the Millwall way, but there was absolutely no doubt we absolutely steamrolled the league. I remember that final day was brilliant. So then we get back into the Championship. Not really many additions. One addition came in, Steve Claridge, and another, Darren Ward.
Yeah.
Two players at the complete opposite end of the professionalism spectrum.
Well, different characters, that's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think with Wardy, though, probably future proofing and probably thought at some point he'd come through, which he did, of course. Maybe even looking at me and Nevers and Turts and that going, well, not sure these boys are going to do it for us. Because a lot of my football until then had been in Div 1 and 2 as it is now.
Yeah.
So maybe they were thinking, well, we've got someone who can come in, can push a bit more, maybe replace, of course. And to be fair to Mark McGee, when I look back, we had a bit of a tough start in the very beginning. We flew out the gates for the first one, then got well beat at Birmingham. I think it was the next week, although Birmingham very strong side, obviously in the end. And I remember, at that time it was a bit, even inside of myself, I thought, I wonder, whether I'm going to stay in here. I've got to play well. And Mark McGee was probably quite patient with us, to be fair, looking back. He could have maybe changed myself, Nevers and people like that, but he didn't. And Wardy had to wait his turn for a long time in the end because we went on had a real strong season, as you know, and my performances were certainly good enough to keep me in the side, and Nevers was playing well. And like I say, I thought Nevers at the end of that season was outstanding for more than a handful of games. So yeah, Wardy had to wait his turn, and then Tuts, I mean, Tuts a funny one with his Palace thing and all that, but Tuts, funny player, Tuts. Whenever you put him in, he got the job done. So yeah, I had a lot of respect for all the group, and particularly Wardy. I mean, outstanding professional, that's for sure. Very fit. Yeah, very fit player. Looked after himself, and he had to wait his turn. And I can never remember who had the heaviest head. It might have been Wardy. I think it was Wardy. We used to weigh heads, and I think Wardy had the heaviest head. So mine had a good go, obviously. Brian Law, who was there, he's had a good go. That's where it started. Me and Brian Law, we started weighing heads because we were.
You used to weigh your heads.
Yeah, so we used to weigh heads, and then we used to decide people were cheating. So we used to dab their neck to make sure they let their neck go loose, so their head would actually get on the scale. So you used to cheat and try and edge their head up. We used to go, whoa, put your big blockhead on there, kid. And we managed to get Wardy on it, and I'm sure he won it because he did have an enormous head. I mean, he's a big guy anyway, but
yeah, well, big mullet as well. I'm trying to work out the logistics of that. How would you weigh a head? Did you lift the scales up, or did you have to lay flat?
No, we had to lay flat. You lay flat, put your head on the scales, but then we used to check your neck. Do you get what I mean? So you couldn't cheat the system. You couldn't hold it tight. You had to check it so that it was all like loose, and your head just went on the scales. So bit of fun for the lads.
Brilliant. Yeah, Wally's been on, mate, and he said exactly what you said. He said thought I was going to Millwall, was like a bit of a bigger name, like he said he was in the Premier League side, got injured. He was going to come into the division and steamroller it, like get a name for himself. He said I couldn't get in. Dyche and Nevers were superb. They kept me out. He didn't mention the head weighing though.
Well, I'm sure he wouldn't. He was. I must say, he was incredibly professional because, like you say, it's not easy coming for quite a few quid at the time. I don't know, maybe like 350, 400,000 or whatever. And he had to sit tight, but he was always professional, always got on with it. He was not accepting, but he accepted the point that we were playing well, the team was going well. And I suppose, looking back, he probably accepted there was going to be a bit of loyalty because we'd done well, me and Nevers, and we'd won the title and all that, and we were playing pretty well. So, yeah, a lot of respect goes for him as well because he really did have to wait a long time until it changed for him. But the rest is history. He went on and did great, so his professionalism paid him back.
Another player who's professionalism has definitely been questioned on this show through other players, but what a striker, Steve Claridge, unbelievable player.
Yeah, a different end of the market than most. Got all his quirks, got his stories, got his off the pitch stories, but scored goals. Found a way of scoring goals, and he'd done that all of his career. Probably from his younger days, he'd learned a lot of them old tricks of strikers. Getting when he first started, you got to remember he'd have been getting shooed about all over the place, and he'd learned all them tricks and to elude people, elude centre halves. Could get in the right place, and he could score varying goals. And with Chop, I mean, Chop for me was tops. For what he achieved at Millwall. But yeah, I mean, Claridge is a very good player. There's no two ways about that. An effective player.
Yeah, very effective player. I couldn't believe how good he was when he came. Just sort of thought he was coming towards the end, and then just came in and give us a real chance, didn't he? But moving to another striker, well, for a couple of times, 3 goals for the club. You remember him?
Yeah, not exactly prolific, but. Yeah, I was just really nuisance value. To be honest with you, me and Nevers just used to try and clear the way for Timmy, really. You know what I mean? Thinking they ain't going to bother with Timmy, and then he'd just pop up like he did, like Jack in the box, and just bang one in, and you thought, yeah, job done. But yeah, not exactly prolific. I was never prolific throughout my career, to be fair. Yeah, good in the defensive box, I would like to think, but not so good in the attacking box.
you say you scored 3 goals for us. I looked through it today and I found your first goal for the club. Do you remember it or not?
Yeah, Bradford away.
Bradford
Come
away.
over the shoulder.
He says you
Come
scored
over
in
the
the
shoulder.
90th minute.
I always tell the lads I overhead kicked it in the top corner, but it's fair to say I'm considerably exaggerating. Sort of dropping down from I think they half cleared it from a corner or whatever, and I just kind of hooked it and it went in the corner. I think it did go roughly in the top corner, but I can assure you, I just tried to get it anywhere near the goal. I
tried to find it on YouTube. If you put in YouTube Sean Dyche, obviously 1,000,001 other things come up before a real goal.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was the 90th minute you scored the goal, and also Robbie Blake scored for them in the 90th minute. So was it 1-1 when you got the winner, or?
Yeah, it might have been. God, I can't remember now. Yeah. But I remember being buzzing, just purely because it was my first goal for the club. And I scored against Birmingham, I think it was, at home.
Yeah.
Can't remember the other one. I scored against Birmingham. The reason I remember that is, no, it wasn't Birmingham. I scored on the Saturday, a header against Sheffield Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, you got it. Sheffield Wednesday and Birmingham.
Yeah, the Sheffield Wednesday was on a Saturday. And the reason I remember it is because we had a group, and well, they're still my mates, but one of our best mates died. And we buried him on the Friday, and Mark McGee gave me the day. I popped into training quick, and then he said, look, you shoot off, because I had to get back to Northamptonshire. And I remember just that weird thing. I remember looking into the sky. I'm not really religious, but I remember thinking, what a weird twist of fate. I've just buried one of my best mates, and I scored the next day. So some weird, odd things that happens in life. No connection, of course, but it feels like there is. It feels like there's some kind of weird thing about the universe at that moment, so I remember that.
All right, fair enough. Another weird thing, I don't know if you know anything about this. I'm going to put a picture on the screen just quickly. The mix and match kit, what's happened there? Do you know? We've got the white shirt, obviously, and the blue shorts and blue socks.
I can't remember what that was. Where was that at?
I don't know. I just searched your name earlier, obviously, for like pictures to go up during the actual edit. And I thought, hang on a minute, what's happened here? You've got the white shirt on and the blue shorts, blue socks. I thought the kit man might have forgot the kit or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened there. There must, obviously a reason. I presume, excuse me, the ref has kicked up a fuss or whatever, because that would be the case normally. But yeah, I don't know what that's all about. It might have been a reserve game, to be fair, might it? Might have been me coming back from injury or something like that. I don't know.
Well, it may well have been. We finished 4th in the division. Man City win the league. Different Man City to you're probably used to back then, but
no, they were a good side though. I remember.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah, they were good. Yeah. That Huckabee, and they were coming back up through the leagues.
Huckabee was frightening. That's it. I remember we played up there, and I think they beat us, but God, he was getting the ball and running like 50 yards with it, and I think Piercy was in that side as well. I think Horlock was there as well.
Mark Kennedy.
Yeah, good side. I mean, you know, at the time they're just another team, and you're trying to beat them, and you're trying to get on. But you look back, that had a massive depth of knowledge in the football and quality. I think, was it not Sean Wright Phillips was up front?
Who? Sorry, Mike Phillips.
Sean Wright Phillips, wasn't it?
Sean Wright Phillips. Sorry, yeah, he was involved. I'm pretty sure we played them at our ground. We lost 3-2 or 4-2, and they wasn't allowed any fans in the ground. I'm sure.
Well, we played them. We played them at ours, and they beat us. But I thought it was 2-0, so I might have got that wrong. But we remember thinking, no, they're an outfit definitely. And I remember going up there, and it was tough up there for some reason. I don't. Maybe that was 3-1 or something. But they were super strong. I think that was it. Benabia. I think Benabia got sent off as well. They had 10 men, but they were still.
It's 3-0. It's 3-0 at Main Road. Is it Main Road then, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was what? Sorry.
Main Road.
Yeah, what was the score?
I think it's 3-0 at Main Road. And I think there's a little bit of aggro. So when they come to our ground, they weren't allowed any fans. I remember Huckabee scored. He went up and he started making out they was up there. But
right, got you. No, they were super strong. I mean, like I say, you look back at the time we're cracking on because we fancied ourselves as well. But looking back, they had that edge of experience as well as quality. I mean, super strong outfit. They deserved to win it that year, that's for sure.
Mm. And then obviously, say the playoffs, 5 games. I think 5 games for the end of the season, you get injured again.
Yeah, I stopped one on the line against, I think it was Stockport, something like that. It was like a one-on-one on the line. I can't remember what had happened, but I ended up on the line, and I managed to block it basically. And as I did, I twisted my ribs, and apparently it's a rugby injury, but a bit of cartilage popped out the bottom of my rib, and I tried to play on, but I thought I can't play on here. I can't hardly breathe. So unfortunately, it took about a month to heal. So I missed whatever that was, maybe 4 or 5 games. And the team did great, obviously, and Nevers was outstanding. As I said, I think Wardy had gone in and done great. So as a role reversal, I had to take it. It was simple as that. I mean, I was screwing, obviously, because I'd had a strong season to that point. To make the playoffs, you want to be part of it. But unfortunately, I ended up sub for I think the last maybe couple of games of the season, and then for the playoffs as well. And then obviously, unfortunately, we got beat over the games. But yeah, it was one of them. It was a real sickener of that season, or certainly for myself, anyway.
And obviously, the playoffs didn't end well for us. I got a big deal on Dublin, didn't we? At that point, I remember he scored away at Birmingham.
Yeah. Dion come in, great pro, great fella. Still see him now and again, and some of his TV stuff, and still a great fella actually. Whenever you meet him, another good character came and he loved it. He really enjoyed his time. They enjoyed the group yet again. As an older pro, he was looking around at some of these really talented young players, and I know he enjoyed it. He still speaks fondly of it now whenever I see him.
Who was you closest to within the squad? Was anyone in particular you got on better with than others, or spent more time with than others?
Believe it or not, the one I got really quite popular with because of my injury was Brian Law. We used to spend a lot of time, just mooching about and having a coffee and all that. Because he was injured, obviously, with his knee. I mean, he never got truly fit again, unfortunately. But and I still keep in touch with him now. But then over the years, Reed is a big friend, Chopper's a big friend, Tone more distantly, but through him still being in the game and stuff like that. Probably Reedy overall. I managed to get a couple of days away with him. And Robbie Ryan, this when I come out the job, and that sort of thing. And Chopper's another one. I've kept in touch with quite regularly over the years. So yeah, but I mean, all of them. He's on the WhatsApp group. You're always saying hello to whoever it is. It's not just them guys, but probably Reed is the one I keep probably closest to, and like I say, Chopper as well, and Tone similar.
Before we came on, you had a little problem connecting, and I said, "Don't worry." I said, "Stephen Reed took about half an hour to get connected." And what did you say to me?
I said he's a very intelligent, articulate human being. That's what I said, I believe.
I think your words are he's as bright as midnight.
Well, I was throwing that around because he's not actually. He's a bright.
No, he's not.
He's a couple of the Irish boys may be different. But...
What was it like? There's obviously. Casa del Sads is a massive part of this. Everyone going around to Sadler's house. I suppose probably not so much for you.
No, I'm pleased to say. Although don't get me wrong, they'd always say you're popping out for a drink and all that. But obviously, I was a bit older and pretty settled. I'd got married the year before, so I'd still go out with the lads and stuff. But I wouldn't be ending up back at Sads if I could help it. Trust me.
No, of course,
I was like, nah, I'll leave that one, lads.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say there's a few stories on that one.
Oh, is there? Who did you room with on away trips? Do you know?
Well, the funniest one is Nevers, who when you room with Nevers is quite an experience because he doesn't like the curtains being shut. So on my debut away at Luton, I was like, Nevers, you've got to be kidding me. And he was going, no, Sean. You can't close the curtains, mate. I went, you've got to be kidding me. And there was like a floodlight outside of the hotel, you know what I mean? Where they light up all the Holiday Inn or whatever, but sign. I was going, Nevers, I can't sleep that, mate. So we had to do a deal. I sort of was allowed to pull the curtains to a certain kind of width, and then that was the deal. So there was a bit of light coming in, but it's kind of dark enough for me to go to sleep. I was like, you've got to be kidding me, Nez. So I remember that, and then he talks in his sleep, he shouts in his sleep, and goodness, it wasn't just me. A few of us had the experience of rooming with Nevers. So, I remember that one. But to be honest, as you can imagine, when you get older, the management sort of always say, look, do you want a room on your own type thing? You know what I mean? So I think
you probably could think of anything worse. Could you be like grown men and having to share rooms like?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, it is different. I mean, it is different, but obviously, if the lads at that time, apart from me and Nevers, there was a lot of a younger group. So you need to have something in common, not about just getting on with each other, just generally in common. But it was more of a thing then when players did share rooms. I mean, nowadays, virtually all players have a room on their own and staff members. So it has changed, But at that time, it was generally, most of my career, you would have someone you roomed with. But a lot of that first season as well, you wouldn't be going on that many journeys when you were staying over all the time anyway. So Nevers and a few others down the time, but mainly, after a while they just said, look, you older lads, do you want a room on your own? So we were like, yeah, sure. So nice. That was the way it was, yeah.
I see a thing about the England team the other day, like how far football's gone. For the World Cup, they all had their own rooms, but they've been catered specifically, like decorated with all their family, whatever they asked for, basically, their family photos and whatever mattress they wanted and everything. Beautiful.
Well, everyone's trying to look for the 1%, and if that makes a difference, that 1% of you
Yeah.
feeling a bit more at home, a bit easier about things, because you are there. I mean, I'm not going to go into the big debate of footballers get everything and all that, but whatever it is, you're away for a long. Well, as it happens, I was hoping we'd be away for longer, obviously, like everyone else. But you're away for a big stint, and so teams trying to make it as comfortable as possible. We'd do it in away dressing rooms when I was manager. We'd put, signage up about Burnley and, different things. We did it at Watford as well, just to try and make that domain feel like your own rather than feel like the away sides, So things like that. And if you are there for a number of weeks and stuff, then, I can see totally why they've tried to, give them a chance to feel a bit more surrounded by whatever it is, family or just ease of life, when things are a bit more to your liking. But like I say, everyone's trying to get the 1%. So everyone's trying to get the best out of players and give them everything they need.
Get back to the Millwall stuff. Obviously, after that failed playoff attempt, you left the club. Is that right? Was your contract up?
Yeah, it was. If you remember, the ITV Digital situation occurred.
Yeah.
And clubs started getting hit with the pullout or the bailout of the ITV Digital when it all went wrong. And it started affecting all situations. And my contract was up. Couldn't agree on anything that would work. And then it was like, well, you got to wait and see because you've been injured and all that, different times then. And Theo was a really good operator, but he ran it hard. He wanted it to make sense and financially make sense. And, he's a really good guy as well, actually. I liked him a lot. And now and again, I know Bobby Barnes is friends with him. So Bobby always says he was asking and stuff like that. But no, he played it hard, and that's fair enough. That's the way it goes. That's what you have to do when you own a football club. And so in the end, Ray Luton came in for me at Watford and, offered me a decent deal that would take me there. So I certainly didn't want to leave. There was none of that going on. I was more than happy with what was going on at Millwall. But, I was like 30, 31 or whatever it was at that time. You got to look after yourself, and they offered me a decent deal and I went around there.
Did you have at this point? Had you already done one eye on management then, or had you done your badges? Or
yeah, I'd done my B license earlier. I did my B license at the end of the first year when I was getting fit again. I did my B license first year at Millwall. Sorry, that is.
Yeah.
And then completed that. So by the time I went to Watford, I'd had my lad Max. So that kind of curtailed the first chance for me to do an A license. So I ended up doing my A license when I left Watford. I went to Northampton. I got my A license done then. But it's fair to say when I was at Millwall, I was already certainly beginning to form strong opinions about what I thought was right about football tactics, players, teams, and all that sort of stuff. And I was often in the era of Ray and the gaffer and Gritty at that time, just picking their brains about little things and little ideas they had and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely was having an eye on the next step of my career.
It wasn't really something you fell into, management. It was definitely in your plans.
Yeah, I mean, I was forming an opinion around that time at Millwall, through varying, the goods, bads, and the uglies of a career in football. I was pretty long in the tooth at that time, and then when I went to Watford as well, working with good people there, and Ray Lewington and Terry Burton and Nigel Gibbs and people like that. So, and then even at the end, I went to Northampton and had a couple of years in the Colin Calderwood and people like that. People I respected. So I was very fortunate, I think, not just because I had a thirst to get my badges done and a thirst to get involved, but also because I think I worked with some very good people who all rubbed off in one way or the other.
Yeah, mate. Usually at this point, I'll say what you're up to now. But again, no disrespect to your career. You had a good career, but you've done so well as manager. A couple of people said to me, I didn't realise he played for Millwall. Like some of my mates who are not Millwall fans, because you've done brilliantly as a manager, mate. Unbelievable.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's been good. It was a good learning curve at Watford. I only had one season there, and then the change of business and what they've done there, obviously, and then went up to Burnley and kind of over time built something with, really using all the things that I learned from the good side of being a sort of having a journeyman career is you have many, many different influences. So, it's almost like, they will say the best restaurateurs, they've been through the whole system. They've cleaned the pots, they've put the plan together, they've worked in the kitchen, they've worked in the front of the house, and that's how they know. Well, sort of in a weird way, I've worked up and down the divisions. I've been in different clubs, different scenarios, different people around you, injuries, hero, zero, all of that stuff. And so when you become a manager, if you've got a taste for it and you sort of got a feel for it, all them experiences stand you in good stead. So I think, like I said, my journeyman career in a different way has probably helped me in my management career.
I've ticked off many grounds through doing obviously this and supporting me all this time. One ground I hadn't done up until this season was Turf Moor.
Right.
Mate,
Okay.
unbelievable. The midweek, the noise that came from that place really surprised me. Brilliant. I love the ground as well. Lovely ground. Brilliant fans.
Yeah, I think they were probably, when I went there, it was a different feel up there. I mean, my first 6 months there, people don't know, first probably 8 months actually. I was getting a lot of stick then. I was probably getting booed off half the time I was there.
Oh, really?
But they care for their club, and they're in a different way than Mill, but sort of similar, because once they accept you, they really do accept you. Once they accepted me and what we tried to do there, I mean, they were brilliant right away. Even at the end, before I came out of there, before the decision was made, they weren't really giving me or the team, really heavy stick. They believed we were going to get it over the line, which I believed we would have. So credit to them for that. It's not easy nowadays. The short-term thinking in football is very, very difficult. Fans getting bombarded from media and media streams about the manager, get rid of them and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's nothing but respect for the Burnley fans, that's for sure. And they've got it going. They've got it going again this year. Fair play to them. Fair play to Vincent. Against probably popular belief, I don't want anything but good for him. 3 months out of 9.5 years is never gonna leave a bad taste in my mouth. Trust me. There's a lot of good work, a lot of good people, and a lot of good times there. So the fact it goes wrong at the very end, that's just life in football sometimes.
Of course it is, mate. To go as long as you did, Jesus Christ, it just doesn't happen anymore, does it?
Yeah, rarely, I would say. It rarely happens. Yeah.
You looking to get back in maybe at some point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I took a bit of advice. I've said in a few interviews, I took a bit of advice from older, wiser managers than me, who sort of said, look, take your time, get away from it. So in the summer, I didn't watch a lot of football. Beginning of the season, I've sort of casually watched. I watched a bit more of the World Cup and stuff, obviously. And sort of over, I suppose, the last sort of the last 3 or 4 weeks before the World Cup, I was a bit more actively involved in watching. But, again, I've shared it in a few interviews that I've always been respectful of other managers. So it's hard because a lot of the Midlands managers where I live now, they were under a bit of pressure until recently, and they've pulled a few results out. So you don't, I want to go to the games, but you don't want to be seen there and everyone's looking if you want the job. Yeah, and I'm like, no, I'm not here to get the job. I'm just here. I'm based in Nottingham now, so if I go to Forest, I'm just there to watch the game. But of course, because they've had an up and down time, they're sort of thinking, oh, look, he's here to get the job. I'm not here to get the job. I'm just here to watch a game. So I've tried to be as respectful as I can and stay away from them grounds. I mean, it's getting a bit easier now with, a few of the manager won a few games now, so there's less questions. But I still don't like that feeling of hovering around football clubs if I can help it when there's jobs up. But I watched my lad Max play a couple of times, and he's been sort of on the edge of things at Northampton Town.
Yeah, I was going to just ask you about that because you said earlier that he was born obviously when he was at Millwall, but now he's an aspiring centre half himself, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I've managed to get to a few of his games, and unfortunately he was due to play Saturday, but it was frozen off, so I couldn't watch that one. But yeah, I managed to get to a few of them. A couple of people I know in the game have invited me to just go and throw my eyes on a couple of games and give an opinion. My daughter's doing great at school, so I see a bit of her when she can and stuff like that. So there's other things in life as well that are important, and I've probably sacrificed a lot of things in my 9.5 years for the time we had there. That's the way it goes.
A lot of Millwall fans saying we'd love to have him down at Den.
Well, who knows one day, but at the minute, I'm sitting tight at the minute. I said recently, it's nothing to do with levels of football. I've worked at all of them, as a player and manager between the two. I've played or managed at all the levels of football. It's more about giving myself a window to see if something in the Prem comes up, see if someone wants you in the Premier League, because it's just quite simply, or certainly arguably, the top division in the world, let alone in Europe. So, I think it is. If you can have another chance to, I'd look at it seriously, quite obviously. And I think I need to give myself a good window and a fair window to see if that happens. If it doesn't happen, then you've got to be a bit more open-minded and spread your thoughts. But at the minute, I'm going to give it a good window and a good chance for if the Premier League changes. You've got to.
Listen, you'll get back into the Prem. Some of our fans, I think a lot of them are younger. It won't happen, so they can all, if you're watching. Josh is not coming to Millwall.
Well, like I say, it's never about Millwall. I had a great time there. It's just that you want to work at the highest level you can, and you've got to give yourself a window for that to happen. And when you think of the realities of it, managers like myself, it's improbable, not impossible, but it's improbable you're going to get probably the top 6 clubs. So therefore, you're immediately down to 14, and of them, there's certain business models in place, whether it's foreign management or foreign sort of thought. So you're kind of narrowing down. And then people have got to want you to go. You know, the owners of these clubs have got to want you to go. So therefore, I'll give myself a decent window to see if something in the Prem comes up.
Just hope so, mate. I'm sure it definitely will. So getting back to the Millwall, we always finish with the same questions. I've got a couple of extra ones for you today based on you being a manager. Your favourite memory of your time at the club?
So many, but I mean, I think it's hard to go beyond the final day of winning the title because, you know, the feeling of a whole season's worth. We'd got promoted the week before, which you'll know we would, you know, vying to win the title. And the way we did it, the way the players turned up on that day, the whole feeling was right. Travelling in, buzzing, you know, before you can get there, the feeling in the dressing room, the feeling on the pitch. Reeder's goal, you know, there's a couple of great goals in it, you know. So I think it's hard to go beyond that. But other than that, just the whole feel of it, you know, I really enjoyed the feel of the place, the people. Obviously, it was a really good period as well for the club, for the fans, and a sort of regrowth of the club somewhat. So to have my little part of that was very pleasing for me as an individual.
Nice. And if you go out tomorrow and meet up with 3 of your old Millwall teammates, you know, take 3, game of golf, night out, whatever you want to do, which 3 are you taking?
Well, probably. Probably Reedy and Chop because Tone really because they're probably the 3 I'm going to keep the most in touch with. On the other hand, I haven't seen Joe in years. He was over recently. We tried to get him up into London, but he had a family commitment that he had to do. So, you know, in a different way, Joe and Matty and some of the people you don't see so often. But no, if it was lads that I knew and I spend a bit of time with, it'd be Reedy, Chops and Tone. And
a final question. So I've added this one in based on management. If you could manage. Go back, you know, pull one of the Millwall players, not yourself, from that era and manage them. Which player would it be?
It was always the one I've been very open with, despite, you know, my connection with Reedy and them. I thought Timmy Cahill was a top player, and he proved it through his career. But even when I was first there, and he was really young, you know, super young, but I think he was a top player. I think, you know, he had an edge to him. He was fit enough. He was quick enough without being lightning. Could arrive in the box in a sort of old-fashioned way when he'd time his run, and he could play. He could play more than people thought. So, I think for that reason, I've always thought Timmy was arguably one of the top players I played with, and in particular, at a very, very young age.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Been a great side, and you was part of that, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Top man, Dyche. Thank you, mate.
Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.